Welcome to the Practice Podcast, a show created by lawyers to help lawyers in life and business without all the complicated lawyer language. Let's welcome Bast Amron founders and your hosts, Jeff Bast and Brett Amron.
Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Brett. How are you? How's everything today?
I am amazingly fantastic.
Amazingly fantastic.
I'm taking a page out of your book. No more. I'm good.
No more. I'm good. Yeah,
No.
It drives me crazy when I ask people,
know.
"How are you?" Good, and you?
There's days when I just want to use the term "good" to drive you crazy. I just come to the office thinking, "How can I make Jeff crazy?" So I just do that.
Thing is, you can only make me crazy for like a second, because then
You're so cool.
Composure.
Yeah,
Then
you're
I
so
regain
cool
my
and calm.
composure.
That's right.
That's how it works.
That's why we work well together.
Yeah.
I am more mercurial, perhaps. Than
It's
you.
a yin yang. We have a yin.
Well, I was looking at the dictionary before I got here.
Yeah,
Thesaurus dictionary, yeah.
Okay.
Do you have a question for me today, Jeff? No, you don't.
No,
don't make it
I'll
up.
make one up.
Don't
I'll
make one up on the fly. It's not going to stick.
Dusk or dawn?
You know me.
I know you're a
a dawn
guy.
I'm a dawn guy.
He's a dawn guy.
Although dusk is a nice time too.
Yeah. I do love dusk in Miami. Like we have the most beautiful sunsets. Our sunsets in the skies at certain times of the year, it's just amazing.
I will say though that dawn, this time of year and getting into the winter, the hues and the colors are amazing.
Yeah.
They're beautiful.
This morning I swam and the sky was black, threatening rain, but there was a gorgeous rainbow across the black sky.
I saw that sky. I was on land running while you were in the water swimming, and I got rained on.
We're connected.
But I did see, if you look further out over the water, there was a clearing.
Yes.
So there was like this black cloud.
That's where I was.
And I actually have a picture on my phone. As you know, I take pictures of the sunrises as I run. So
yeah, you haven't shared. Brett has a habit of running early, and then he shares a photo with the office, and it's just a great way to start the day. So please share.
I started that pandemic, right? Like a good morning, because we weren't together anymore, and so I was doing it. So I have albums in my phone now for the last 4 years, 20, 21, 22, 23.
I love it. Great morale enhancement.
Yeah. Maybe we should introduce this voice, this mysterious voice that people are hearing. Shall we?
I think we shall.
Okay. Our guest today is Richard Barbara. Richard is a Miami native and something of a legal legend here in the fields of real estate and litigation.
Yeah, too kind.
He has
he's not done yet. There's more.
Hang on. Yeah. He has a storied legal career starting in a traditional law firm setting before he co-founded Alvarez & Barbara, where he was a partner and founder for 12 years, focusing on real estate, civil and commercial litigation, and corporate law. And then in 2017, he left the private practice to assume the role of general in-house counsel for the Barreto Group in Coral Gables, where he was offering legal advice to Rodney Barreto, another legend of Miami, but he's a longtime pillar of the Miami community. And Richard also at that time co-founded Coral Gables Title and Escrow, which is a real estate and escrow company. He's special counsel to Progressive Care, a health tech company, and NextPlat Corp, an e-commerce and technology company. And he also serves on Progressive's advisory board. And he's an active participant in his community. He has chaired Florida Bar Grievance Committee. He contributes to the Baptist Health South Florida Giving Society. He serves on the Miami Cancer Institute Council. And he also serves as the vice chairman of the Florida Real Estate Commission, where he represents Florida citizens as a consumer member of that state board. So welcome, Rich. Is there anything you don't do?
Well, I'm going to add to that before you pipe in and say he is a loving husband and a father to a beautiful young woman.
And he's also a handsome guy.
And that's my favorite gig is the father.
That's right. Yeah. He's a handsome young man. And how he gets all of that done, that's going to be, I think, a portion of our question.
The fiction, the handsome young man.
So let's start off. You grew up in South Florida, went to law school, born and raised. Did you always want to be a lawyer?
Always.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I'm not sure.
Anybody in your family?
No. In fact, I was the first member of my family to graduate from college. But I don't recall ever wanting to do anything else. And then when I was probably about 13 or 14, I saw A Few Good Men.
Oh, great movie.
And man, I was certain after that. I knew it was something I wanted to do, but after that I was like, I even wanted to go to the JAG Corps for a little while. And then I realized that, you had to be a soldier probably first. And so, although much to my father's chagrin,
boot camp was not in the
I don't have the gumption. Those are far better men than me.
Yeah.
So you started, in terms of practice, you started kind of like Brett and I did with, traditional law firm practice. And then you ventured out to start your own firm, also like Brett and I did. But how long into the practice were you before you started your firm?
Not long enough.
You were early.
That was a painful lesson. Yeah, I started my career at Cole, Scott & Cassane, which is to this day, I love the firm. I love the Richard Cole is, talk about a pillar. That guy's the man. And I worked directly for Gene Cassane. I probably wasn't deserving of the job. I got the job because I went to high school with a lady named Shannon McCoy, who's the daughter of Jackson McCoy of Wicker Smith. And I called Mr. McCoy from law school. I said, Mr. McCoy, I need a job. Are you hiring? He says, Richard, I'm not hiring, but my best friend's firm is always hiring. And he sent me over to Cole, Scott & Cassane. And somehow I tricked him into hiring me.
Modesty. Modesty.
And so I was there for about a year, like a year and a month. And then I left.
To start your own firm. Now, what is wrong with you? Now, what made you think, okay, I can do this myself?
Complete ignorance of the reality of life. Yeah.
But confidence in yourself.
Yeah, of course. My immediate supervisor, who ended up being my partner for 12 years, we were defending tort claims, and so we thought that we knew enough about how the carriers worked. The master plan was to get out and do plaintiff's work. And we just thought that we were going to open our doors and that catastrophically injured plaintiffs would fall out of the sky and we would make millions of dollars. Obviously, it doesn't work that way. We were severely undercapitalized. We started with no money, no clients. We each put in like 15 grand or something like that, which we immediately spent on computers and nonsense. And, it was a struggle. And then we realized quickly that the catastrophically injured plaintiffs would not just appear. So, we became what we call door lawyers, right? So you'd walk in and you'd be like, oh, I have a trademark case. And be like, oh, I'm an expert in this, And so that's why, we call it, I guess, the practice of law, right?
That's right.
So, we started going, that was 2006. So it was still in the run-up. So we realized pretty quickly that real estate transactions were a lucrative way of or an easier way to kind of keep the lights on. So we started doing some title work at the time. That was the genesis of that side of the practice. And, little by little, we would get good results and then we'd get some corporate clients. And that's kind of how I ended up more, less torts. My partner was always focused on the plaintiff's work and the first party insurance. And I was more kind of like the business lawyer guy. And, little by little, it kind of took off until, coincidentally, I was adverse to Rodney in a case, that came up in like
Rodney Barretto.
Yeah. In 2012. Well, at first, the guy that hired me was his partner. They were aligned. And then a couple years later, they had a falling apart of their partnership. I was actually adverse to Rodney in their separation. I'll never forget the case ends. And 2 days later, he calls my office. He was very well represented by a guy who's still a dear friend of mine to this day.
So he was the party, let's to be clear. He was the party on the other side, not the lawyer on the other side.
No, not right. He's not a lawyer.
He's not a lawyer.
And you didn't know him before the case, did you?
No, it's funny. When I first got hired by his then former partner, business partner, it was these gas station litigation cases. They for a while they would build gas stations. Rodney was the capital. They'd acquire the land. His partner was a Valero jobber. For people who don't know what jobber means, like they run the fuel from the port to the stations, but Valero centric. And he was also a gas station builder. And the guy would build the stations and then in the run-up, they'd turn around and sell the stations, and they did that several times, and it was very successful. When the downturn hit, these stations were on the west coast of Florida, which was like ground zero, right, at least in Florida, for the serious devaluation in property and all that. And so the stations were way overbuilt. The loans far exceeded the values. And so they became gas station kind of holders, if you will. And at that point, they'd do these like key fees, and so these guys would come in. They'd pay, $250 grand for the key. They'd be handed over a station with a C-store that was completely built out. You know, it had a Dunkin' Donuts in it many times. It had ATMs. It had, filled, the shelves were filled. It had lotto machines. It had all these things. And so the operator would get to, they made money on the C-store. And then you'd also have to buy the fuel from Rodney's partner. Mm-hmm. So it was like rack price plus a couple cents on the gallon. And that was kind of the business. But things got very rough out there on the West Coast. And so these gas station operator guys started to file these lawsuits saying that they had been, misled about how much volume the station would do, all of which was false, actually. So when I got hired to represent these gas station defendant entities, right, Rodney and this guy were still partners and everything was fine. I'll never forget the day I met the guy. He says, one day you'll meet my partner. His name's Rodney Barreto. Name meant nothing to me at the time. That was 2010. And then 4th of July, 2012, I'll never forget. I'm like knee deep in water in the Keys, and this guy's blowing up my phone, and by then we'd kind of developed a friendship. It's 2 years of litigation.
He called you after...
Not Barreto,
my then client right. at the time, which was then Rodney's partner.
Come on.
Yeah, sorry, my fault.
We've taken, We've gone down a rabbit hole here now.
That's all right.
Yeah. No, it's okay. Keep going.
So he calls me like 6 times. Finally, I pick up the phone and I'm like, Warren, what is going on, buddy? It's the 4th of July. And he says, no, I need you to look at something right now. It has to be today. This and I said, Warren, whoever's bothering you today, you tell them that I say it's un-American. Okay? It is un-American to harass people on the 4th of July. Oh, I need you to look at it. Finally, I look at it. It's this horrific separation agreement. There was no way I'd ever let him sign it. I picked up the phone. I called Rodney's lawyer at the time. I said, hey, man, this is Rich Barbara. I represent Warren. He says, oh, it's great, Warren. It's long overdue that Warren produces counsel. I said, all right, well, listen, we're not going to deal with this today. That's number one. Number two, we're never going to sign it as is. Okay, so, it's the 4th of July. When I get to the office tomorrow, I think it was a Saturday that year or something like that. I'll call you. We'll go from there. And so it was months of negotiation. When it was done and they were officially separated, I'll never forget, it was a couple days later and, Rodney calls my office and my receptionist says, it's Rodney Barreto. And I thought it was strange, and I pick it up and I said, sir, how can I help you? And he says, Rich, it's Rodney Barreto. And I said, okay, sir, does Tom know you're calling me? That was his lawyer at the time. He says, I'm a big boy. Tom doesn't have to know I'm calling you. I said, all right, well, what can I do for you? And he goes, I just want you to know I got screwed on this deal. His language was a little more colorful. And I said, you did?
This is an R-rated podcast, by the way.
Oh, okay, great.
Feel free. Yeah, feel free.
Okay, well, yeah. So I was nervous at that point because by then I knew who Rodney was. And I'm like, oh, no, I certainly don't want to be on the radar, So I was like, you did? He says, yeah, I did, but it's never going to happen to me again. You want to know why? And I said, sure, why is that? And he says, because you're going to work for me now. And I kind of stumbled and I was like, I don't think I can do, I think I've read somewhere that I can't do that, And, and he's like, no, you can do that because Warren's going to sign whatever you need him to sign. And, he hung up and 2 seconds later, Warren called me. He says, oh, I heard you have a new uncle. And I'm like, man, this is crazy. You guys are strange. And he goes, no, this is going to be good. Trust me, because he's never going to leave me alone. So I'll be happy that you're over there.
But you are at this point have your own law firm.
Still had my own firm. Yeah, that was 2012.
So,
yeah.
Okay.
So for the next 5 years, I represented him, and slowly the work got more.
You started doing work for him.
Correct.
You didn't.
Yeah.
Okay. But when he said come work for me, he meant representing him.
Yes, for a while, and it was just the gas station cases that remained. Right. And then after that, it was kind of some transactions and then some other stuff. And then, he knows I like golf. So in 2014, he calls me, he says, do you want to go to the Masters? And I replied, am I getting punked? And he's like, I don't know what that means. I'm like, never mind. Are you serious? And he says, yeah. I go, how do we do that? He says, it's very simple. I'm going to pick you up. We're getting my plane and we're fly away. I said, okay, perfect. So I called my wife and said, oh, Rodney's taking me to the Masters. And that was 2014, Bubba's first win. Maybe second win.
Bubba Watson,
for non-golfers.
Myself included.
Yeah. And the minute we get on the airplane, he says, why don't you come work with me full time? You can stop, consolidate the number of asses you got to kiss, and do better things. And, your mouth, my money, we could do great things. I looked at him and I said, I really appreciate it, but you're crazy. Yeah, I know how you are. I'm going to come to your office, twiddle my thumbs. You'd be like, what am I paying you for? He says, no, I know it's going to take a while, but I have a plan and a vision. It's going to be great and this, that. And for 3 years, I said no, stupidly. It's like, it was like not liking sushi. I feel bad for the old me, But finally in 2017, I relented, you know, and it's been a great ride. Been a great ride.
What a story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much in there. Obviously, a credit to you and the hard work and the good work you did for your client in opposite, Rodney Barreto and him realizing, hey, I need that guy on my team. Right?
It was nice. It was very flattering.
That's a fantastic statement about you and who you are and your work.
It was cool.
To have that, right? To have sort of your opponent call you, if you will, and say, hey, now I'm hiring you. So that's cool. And then what I see as well is like in your story there, Miami it was so much smaller.
Oh, wow.
Back in the day, right? Like,
it really was.
My friend's father's best friend, and that's how I got my first job. I mean, that's literally how it was, right? I mean, there's still some of that, but it's not quite as small as it used to be.
It's not. I used to say it was the biggest little city in the world.
Yeah.
And now
it is.
It's still small.
Yeah, it's still small relative to other major cities.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. That was, like I said, it was, I used to have a friend that used to say, in this life, it's, who you know and how you look.
Yeah.
Obviously, I have no fortune on the how you look side, but on the who you know side, I've done okay there, so.
Well, and if you are not somebody like who you are, which is really good at what you do, confident, like all that, then who you know is only going to go so far.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So you got to be good at what you do.
Yeah.
You worked hard at it. And obviously Rodney saw something and was like, okay, now you're in.
Yeah.
But knowing somebody, and same thing with Richard Cole back in the day, right? If you walked in the door and you weren't someone that Richard Cole thought, I'm going to take a chance on this guy, then he would have said, hey, I don't have any, I don't have a spot.
Yeah,
but if one opens up.
That's actually funny too. He was the last interview I had that day. And then a few other lawyers come into the office and he's like, did you bring a writing sample? And I said, yes, sir. And I take it out and I hand it to him. And he's like, what would you give this? What grade would you give this? And I said, a C. And he's like, you brought me a C? And I'm like, oh, the C's the best I ever got in writing. I'm more of an advocate type guy.
I'm a talker.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'll never forget one of the other lawyers there was like, is this kid for real?
I'm tough on myself. I'm a hard grader.
It's funny.
That's really funny. And so I'm curious, was it the transition to go working for Barreto, was that kind of the same as starting your own firm, that you kind of didn't know what you didn't know? Or sounds, because I don't think so, because you were, it was 3 years in the making.
Yeah, no. From the work that I had been doing for him to the work that we started doing after I got there was a lot of change, because there were things that he wanted to do. Like he wanted to get out of the gas business. So that was my first mission, was to kind of unload these stations that were just a disaster in our lives. Mm-hmm. Then, he wanted to get into better investment opportunities. And because of the real estate, I had, considerable deal flow. So we started doing some hard money lending, all secured by real estate. And, I brought the title business with me because he thought it was a good way to kind of, keep things going. And his son, who's a great kid, he's my partner in I say kid, but he's obviously a grown man, but he's younger than me. So I, feel like a little brother, but he's my partner in the title business, and the kid's a number, whereas my other partner, neither one of us were very good at like keeping track of things. I mean, this guy knows where every penny goes. So that's great. So he works with us in the business, and that was a way to give Brad a role in the company right away. So it was great. I mean, it was great. And people would ask me all the time, they're like, why would you leave your own firm? You had your name on the wall and you were the boss, and now you're not the boss. And I'm like, it's like, if you like sports, most guys like sports, and they tell you, you're a football fan? Yeah. And they call you and tell you, do you want to be the GM of an NFL team? And it's like, yeah, it's kind of like a dream job. Of course, you could go to like Cleveland or Detroit, which is not only is the place terrible, but the team has historically not been so great.
The opinions of the guests on this podcast don't necessarily
do not reflect the opinions of the show. Exactly. Right. So
we like Cleveland and Detroit now. Anyway,
to live. I mean, I've never been to either, so what? I probably shouldn't say that.
But they have those franchises have had a difficult run.
Right. But this was like going to the Patriots.
Yeah.
They win all the time kind of thing, so it was.
So you viewed it as a step up.
100%.
And yes, your name wasn't on the door, but the opportunity was there and you're like, nah, I can't. How can I've said no enough. I gotta
didn't
do this.
matter. It's like, I say that it's, what do you call the fish that's on the shark? The remora? Remora, yeah. Right. I was like, oh, I'm going to go be a remora on the baddest shark in the ocean, kind of thing. So yeah, no, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah. You're a little bit more than a remora. So, a young lawyer that's listening to this, how do they position themselves for this kind of success? And I know yours is a unique situation, but I don't believe that your path is one that's just paved by luck. I think you paved that path and you found the way.
Preparation and
luck
opportunity.
is when opportunity meets preparation.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think the first thing for young lawyers that I didn't do enough of early on is that you have to get out there. And what I mean by get out there is that you have to find ways to get involved in things that, first of all, ideally things that you like, but things that are going to put you in front of the people that you want to be around. So, early on, I did very little networking. In fact, I was against it, probably because my former partner was very much trying to push me to do it. And so it's like if your dad tells you to do something, it's like you do the opposite. So in fact,
I tell my kids that, by the way.
Yeah. It's funny. I was thinking about you just this morning, Jeff, because I remember that when I joined BNI, before I joined BNI, I called you and I said, Jeff, what do you think of BNI? And Jeff was like, oh, it's okay. I'm in BNI. And I'm like, what do you think? You think I should join? You think it'll be good for me? And Jeff says, I think it'll be good for BNI. Which I found to be a strange response. I'm like, really? I thought, but and that was one of the things that was very much a big influence. That was before I went to work with Rodney. I was already representing him, but it teaches you, the discipline of doing something at the same time every day. And, so I think that young lawyers have to get out there. So you got to get involved and you got to try to develop relationships with the older lawyers you work with. I remember every time I had a case, and the lawyer was always older, of course, I'd look them up, I'd try to learn something from them. And then when I'd go to their offices, I'd try to observe the things in their office so that I could see the things that they liked. So like Irving Gonzalez, God rest his soul, the guy was into marine things, like boat things. Like you go into his office and he had portholes from the ships and nautical stuff. And so, when you think of the guy and, you get done with the file, you send him something like that, then the guy remembers you, and if you do the right things, in the work you're doing, you keep your word. So that lawyers know, hey, if Rich tells me, that he's going to file this or that he's not, or he's going to wait, they can trust you, then that really kind of goes a long way. And so you got to get involved in the community. I like the politics and stuff, so I always try to get around politicians and get appointments to things. And
there's so many different ways, right? Like you said, and I think that's a great point. First, look for something you enjoy doing, because then it's not really work, right? Like, if you like the arts and you want to join some, get on a board or get involved on a committee or something related to that, great. There's always going to be people that you're going to connect with. If you don't focus on, well, today I'm going to go to this meeting and I need to get a new client out of that meeting. That's not how it works.
Absolutely not.
Right? It's relationships. So talk about until you saw results. It took a while.
Man, it felt like forever. I tell people all the time, the first 10 years in practice was hard. A lot of the work I got after the downturn was because my brother is a major developer in this town and he was wildly successful. And all of a sudden I saw his world coming crashing down. Again, in law school, I didn't even take secured transactions. And all of a sudden, I went from I was going to be a tort lawyer. In my mind, I want to be a trial lawyer. I've never even tried a case as a result of all the transactions. Now I'm I try to avoid litigation. But I remember I would get these forbearance agreements, and I had never heard the word forbearance agreement, on these huge loans. Fear was an incredible motivator. So, I had to learn a lot kind of on the go. And so those first several years were hard because I didn't like the work, because I didn't understand it primarily. It was high stress. It was largely family. Had a lot of developer relatives that went through issues. They weren't very good at paying bills, okay? But to this day, my brother kind of chides me about it. He goes, no, I should send you the bill because you learned everything you're good at now. You learned practicing with my stuff, So, and that's only partially inaccurate, So it took forever. It took what felt like forever. We were always kind of burning the candle at both ends was the feeling. And that was actually part of the reason that I ended up just jumping ship and going to Rodney, because my daughter had just been born, she was born in March of 16.
Yeah.
And I realized at that point that it just wasn't so cool to be hanging by a thin thread all the time, and so I needed a little bit more stability. I went to see him and I said, "Are you serious about all this, me coming to work for you?" And he says, "Yeah, And so he's like, "Make me a proposal." And I went home, I talked to my wife and I wrote it up, and I thought for sure, I'm like, if he agrees to this, I gotta go. And I'll never forget, he took one look at it. He said, "Oh, it's great. When can you start?" And that's when I knew I kind of messed up. I'm like, "Oh,
you should ask for more."
Wait. I'm like, give it back. No, but it's been great. It's been great. And so, like I said, I started practicing in 2005. So that was 2017. So 12 years. I mean, that's when I say that's the real beginning of the results.
Yeah.
It's just been great since.
Yeah. You got, I think, the lesson is, I mean, you both have said it, that loving the work or choosing things that you love to do. So if you don't love a particular aspect of the work, you work on something else. And, getting involved. And I know that's such a vague, getting involved in the community is such a vague, people are probably out there going, well, what does that even mean? Get involved. But I think it is, go volunteer somewhere, go get involved, go to events, meet people. When you do meet people in cases or in school or whatever, maintain a relationship with them, talk to them beyond what your transaction is.
And it's shocking how much opportunities out there if you look for it. So some of the boards that I've been on, you can go online. So in fact, you mentioned the real estate commission. That was great. That was a gubernatorial appointment. Right. So that one was a little above my pay grade. It's just a function of the people I'm around. I'll never forget, I was at a meeting and with the person who kind of handles that portion of the governor's duties and says, if you're interested in something, why don't you go online and see the available positions? And I'm like, I had no idea that was online. And you go to the state's website and there's a whole thing on all the boards and all the vacancies. And then you could just apply. And then of course, once you apply, it helps to know someone, right, that can kind of, make the decision makers take note of your application. But this is true of cities and municipalities and the county as well.
Right.
So, a buddy of mine won a seat on the Gable City Commission. A fraternity brother of mine, George Ford, he's not on the commission anymore. But, I called him up and I said, "Can I have an appointment?" And he was like, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I don't know. I just want to help. I want to be involved." And he's like, "Well, take a look, and see what's available." And so I was appointed to the Gable's Property Advisory Board. And that was amazing. And then I met great people there.
Right.
And those things led to other opportunities. And, so it's out there. If you look for it, it's out there.
But the key is exactly, you just said it. You were looking for it.
Yeah.
And you took the step of asking. All you have to do, and that's, I think, where people so many, especially young people, hang up, is they're afraid to ask. People are afraid of the ask.
Yep.
And if you're on the receiving end of the ask, at the very least, you're flattered that somebody wants to help or is looking to you for guidance,
People love to feel like they can help. I tell people that all the time. If you make people feel like they can help you, makes them feel good. Yes. They're more inclined to do it.
Yeah.
There's so many cliches for that, right? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, or, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, whatever it is. It's like, you got
the dog that trots about finds a bone.
Right. Exactly.
All right. Cliche time is over.
Yeah.
So what you mentioned in there, though, is also the relationships, right? So after so many years, right, you have friends now, and probably really close friends, that you started the relationship through work, whether it's through actual case or whether it's through sitting on a commission, whatever it is, or a board, whatever it is. So that's the hard lesson, I think, to teach the young lawyers is it takes time.
It does.
And just don't go in with the idea like, who am I going to get work from in this room? Go in and think about where are the relationships, right? And generally speaking, people who think alike, who act alike, are going to gravitate to each other, right? And so that's how you ultimately can build, to me, you build your career, right? In a way, in your relationships and that's how someone's going to call and say, "Oh, hey, Rich, I have this thing. Remember, we sat on this commission together, sat on this board, and I know you do this kind of work, and I know you're really good, and and I like you, whatever. And so I'm calling you because I have this thing, or I know somebody that has this thing. So it just takes time.
It does. Like, listen, all what is everything in life is like that.
Yeah,
it's like
it's a marathon.
For young lawyers, it's very hard, I think, to inspire confidence, which is also what the client is looking for.
Sure.
People have problems. I tell people we're in the business of misery because we solve problems. Like, very few people wake up hitting on all cylinders and think, let me call my lawyer.
You're in front of one of them. What are you talking about now?
Yeah, no. I'm saying, to call a lawyer.
Right, yeah.
Well, me too, not just you.
Yeah.
You were talking about yourself.
Usually if you're calling a lawyer, you either have a problem or want a problem.
Right.
And so as a young lawyer, it's very difficult to inspire confidence.
Well, it's our job, right, to take in the problems of others and not really show any emotion. They don't care about what happened to you before that call or that meeting.
At all.
They don't care.
Yeah.
And nor should they, right? They hire you to handle it for them.
Of course.
You got to take it all on and, like you say, inspire confidence, but it's unemotional. You just can't.
Well, without allowing the emotion to cloud your judgment. Because oftentimes, they're so invested in the problem or so inside the problem that they can't see the path out. Yeah. And so that's our job is we're eyeballs.
That's why they hire lawyers.
Solver.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Take the problems, take it off. Let me take it off your shoulder. Let me deal with it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to help you. I'm going to show you a path to a resolution.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's
beautiful.
Right.
That's it.
That's it. Done.
Such an easy gig.
I have one more.
It sounds easy, but it's.
I have one more. The early bird gets the worm. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh,
all right.
Does it though?
This was fun. Rich, I'd like this to be part one of a multi-part series.
Yeah, there's so much more to talk about with Rich.
Back?
Man, it would be an honor.
Yeah.
I love
it's hard to get Rich on the calendar. He's sitting on so many commissions.
No, man, it's
boards.
absolutely not.
I feel like we only just scratched the surface.
Really
you want to give a shout out to your little one?
My daughter Evie, the best.
Yeah.
Man, she runs me.
She's not going to listen to this.
I know. He's going to play her this little
I'll play her this little part.
Okay, fair enough,
and to my wife, who I tell people I definitely married up. 19-year anniversary.
Well, you're sitting in front of two other guys that married way.
I tell people all the time, when my wife and I are out in public, we're the couple about which people whisper, he must have money, which is completely inaccurate because I met her when she was 17. So, and I was a young man. So yeah, but no, it's great. And a shout out to you guys. If you're listening, these guys, Jeff and Brett, all BS aside, are among the finest lawyers in Miami and even better humans. It's years now that I send them work. We work together. They're exceptional lawyers. In fact, I've even hired you guys. We had like that clawback case of a client. It was my former partner's client. God bless. So I mean, these guys are lawyers. So, and I really appreciate you guys having me on. I'd be happy to come back anytime.
We are grateful for your friendship and thank you for coming on this show.
The feeling is mutual.
If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a 5-star review. And if you didn't enjoy this episode, then what is wrong with you? Really? Come on. Subscribe, share the show. And we will see you next time.
Thank you, Rich.
Nelson, thank you, Rich.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Brett.
No, Jeff. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
For more information on this show and other resources, visit fastamron.com and connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram @FastAmron.